Hey, hey. What y'all gonna do? We'll cruise up among the stars. No matter what you do, I'll get you back up off the wall. Yes, sir. Yo, life is full of options, switching all the time, but the quickest way from A to B is still a straight line. I ain't lying, that is science. I'm trying to explain, cause if you apply determination, you can do anything. You can't put your mind to. Give me the audio chord so I can find something to ride to. We're about to fly to another planet. Is magical, warp speed like it's intergalactic. The way you make me feel, let's dip, cause we can fly in my starship like Han Solo by the castle mines, like Cowboy Bebop with jet inspired, like Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. We can travel far like a Dharma did in a Battlestar. I'm flinging haters like a catapult. You feel the heat, take it off. Like what y'all gonna do? We'll cruise up among the stars. No matter what you do, I'll get you back up off the wall. Yes, sir. Keep your windows down. Breeze hitting, you didn't know, but you know now. I'm not kidding, there ain't no stopping. BSing is not an option. I just wanna see everybody rocking. I wanna see you getting higher than a rocket. Land a spacecraft with Neil and Buzz Aldrin. She in the cockpit, cruising at an altitude up there where all the stars live. Take the TARDIS back to Gallifrey, where the guardians of the galaxy, like Superman and Lois Lane, go to Cybertron on the Astro train. I just want to see you do your thing. If you don't know now, then you'll learn. From the earth to the moon, influenced by Jules Verne. I'm not concerned about what y'all gonna do. We'll cruise up among the stars. No matter what you do, I'll get you back up off the wall. Yes, sir.
Packing up for another trip. If you drive by my way, relieve it, there's no rush to this. We can rock night and day. Intergalactic love for this. Take me to outer space. Pick me up on that mothership so we can fly away.
I get in trouble sometimes. You make me wonder where we're flying to this summer.
Are we going somewhere?
I get in trouble sometimes. You make me wonder where we're flying to this summer. I get in trouble sometimes. You make me wonder where we're flying to this summer.
Where we going, baby?
Ooh. I get in trouble sometimes. You make me wonder where we're flying to this summer. Like
What y'all trying to do?
hey, 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 hey. What y'all gonna do? We'll cruise up among the stars. No matter what you do, I'll get you back up off the wall. Yes, sir. Yo, life is full of options, switching all the time, but the quickest way from A to B is still a straight line. I ain't lying, that is science. I'm trying to explain, cause if you apply determination, you can do anything. You can't put your mind to. Give me the audio chord so I can find something to ride to. We're about to fly to another planet. Is magical, warp speed like it's intergalactic. The way you make me feel, let's dip, cause we can fly in my starship like Han Solo by the castle mines, like Cowboy Bebop with jet inspired, like Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. We can travel far like a Dharma did in a Battlestar. I'm flinging haters like a catapult. You feel the heat, take it off. Like what y'all gonna do? We'll cruise up among the stars. No matter what you do, I'll get you back up off the wall. Yes, sir.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true. I know Derek Jones about to break it down with the relationship gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derek Jones, the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship gumbo, ayy.
Hey, everybody, we are back. It's another Wednesday night at 8 p.m. You know what time it is. It is the Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live Edition. And tonight, we're going to talk about something that I talk about a lot, but we're going to get into a little more detail. We're talking about healing tonight, y'all. So make sure you invite whoever you need to invite. If that word is something that triggers you, make you feel good, make you feel a certain way, whatever way you feel, you need to be on tonight. Make sure you bring in some folks. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube page, make sure you click that button right now. Click that button, hit that subscribe button, click that bell so you can get the reminders, because every week we are going in. We want to make sure you guys get the information you need. Amazing guests are on the way. And we have fun too sometimes. Every now and then we like to chuckle a little bit, but we want you guys to get some healing in here. Wait, did I say healing? We talking about healing tonight. Make sure y'all stay. So, if you are here for the first time, this is not just video. We are also an audio podcast, and we are on I won't say every, but 99% of where you can get a podcast. We are there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, literally everywhere. So when you go, you can even do it on, let me think, Alexa, you can do it on your Fire Stick. Like, I'm everywhere. So make sure y'all tune into that, listen to it in your headphones, all that good stuff in your car. So make sure you do that. The second bit of business we have, if you haven't seen it yet, The Real Shop Talk, every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am one of 5 gentlemen. We are all grown men giving you our experiences, our knowledge, our wisdom, and we are community builders here. We have a mission to grow the community, grow relationships, and try to tackle some of this negative energy and negative content that's out here on the internet. We want you guys to have positive images of men, and we want you to hear how we think. So make sure you come back every single Monday. Go to www.realshoptalk.net. All of the information is there. This Monday, we are celebrating our Tony Watts calls him Smiley, but Gunter Man. Rick Hovind, Gunter Jr. is going to be celebrated. We're going to talk all things Gunter Man. We're going to show you how much we care about him and love him and give him his flowers while he is still here. So make sure you come back, because y'all know that energy is going to be on 10,000. So make sure y'all come back. So the way that this podcast normally runs is, because it's also an audio podcast, I will pause for 3 seconds. I will start the podcast, and at the end of the podcast, I'll pause for 3 more seconds so we can chop it off on both ends, so you'll have that good audio for you to listen to in your car. So without further ado, give me about 3 seconds, and we are going to get it in. Welcome to another episode of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones, and I'm your host. I'm a certified life and relationship coach, an engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. So tonight, not only do we have an amazing guest that you guys will recognize, that you know and love, but we have a topic that everybody should care about. We're talking about healing. What does healing really look like? I'm going to save my thoughts about that in a minute. I was about to say something, but I want our guest to chime in on this conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her up right now, and she's going to introduce herself to you, but you guys should know who this is. So hold on 1 second. Here she comes.
Hey.
So you're unmuted. Welcome back. It's Altagracia Phyllis. Guys, y'all know the last time she was here, it was amazing. I think we both couldn't stop talking. You was getting all that information out. And I do want to say this. If you aren't familiar with her, tonight you're in for a treat. Healing is the topic, but I want her to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and who you are.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me back. We really love being on your show among all the other ones I've been on. Thanks to you. So I'm Alta Felix. Alta Gracia is my name. Alta for short. It's much easier to swallow. And I am an intuitive trauma coach. I specialize in helping women who have experienced intimate partner abuse heal their relationship with themselves first, then with others, and then their money. And I do this through a bunch of different modalities, but I have found that facilitating circles and holding space for women in that way has been the most powerful way for me to facilitate healing or just hold the space for the women to do the necessary work. So I'm really excited to be here today talking about this topic because there's so many different shades and layers to it. And I think we get to unpack that today.
Yep, absolutely. I'm excited about it because, and I'm gonna ask you a question in a second because a lot of us say the words, but we really don't know what it really entails or what it looks like or the how. And a lot of people say it tongue in cheek. You know how these people, you hear them say, "I've been healing for 10 years," and I'm like, "Well, what have you been doing for 10 years that you don't?" And I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'll kind of piggyback on it before I say that. So, because we're going to dig a little deeper. Generally speaking, when you hear someone say for yourself, because you're the professional, the word healing, what does that mean, and what do most people get wrong about it?
Oh, to me, and the way that I like to describe healing is going in and doing the work. Not tiptoeing around the trauma or the feelings or the triggers, not using those triggers, the trauma and all of that as excuses or as crutches. Healing is really going in there and saying, okay, like this happened, this is awful. What next? Like, what can I do with this next? What can I take from this experience that I can use to transform my life? And I firmly believe that there's always a gift in the trauma. Sometimes that gift is for you, and sometimes that gift is for someone else. And even when it's not for you, and I think that's a hard part too, is when it's not for you and it's for someone else, that sometimes feels like, how can that possibly be a gift? But I think giving is just as powerful as receiving.
Right.
Yeah. And
So,
then
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I
ask the
jumped. I
question.
jumped the gun. You were going to the second. What do you, in your experience, what do you think most people get wrong about healing in their idea of what it is or what it looks like?
Burying it. So they think like, I acknowledge it, I see this thing, it happened, and now I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to deal with it, and I just want to like move on from it. Not realizing that those types of experience get stuck way beyond the mental level. And you have the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, like there are layers to it. And
Hmm.
just saying it's here, I cried, I talked about it, and now it's over, that's not really the process. But I do see a lot of people do that, and then they're like, I'm over it, but then they go over here and this person triggers them,
Yeah.
or any one of the things that could come up, and they lash out, right? Or they
Hmm.
implode, they react rather than respond.
Yeah. I always tell people, because I know you've heard this before, where people say, you can't move on or you can't move forward past something until you're fully. They use the word fully healed. And I always
Mm.
tell them there's no such thing. They want it to disappear, and I'm like, no, it's still there. Like people don't realize that when you experience things that traumatize you, you just can't snap your fingers and it just goes away. You can't sit in a house for 2 years and 3 years and think, oh, if I just, out of sight, out of mind, it's just going to disappear until you get
Mhm.
triggered.
Then it's like, oh wait.
so so I'm looking at these bullet points that I have here, and I have them in a certain order, but as we flow, I feel like I need to go somewhere different than the lineup I have.
Go
So
for it.
let's do this. I have a note here about leaning into different modalities of healing, traditional and non-traditional. So follow my lead. I want you to talk about traditional and non-traditional, and then we're going to talk about some areas where people normally find themselves in issues and where trauma normally lasts for a lot of people. We're going to get into some of those categories, but I want you to talk about the different modalities of healing first, and then we'll go into some of the examples of where people kind of lie with some of the things they experience.
Okay. So we'll start with traditional, right? Traditional modalities of healing look like therapy, whether that's group therapy, one-on-one therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, all things under the umbrella therapy is usually the traditional route that most people go. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of benefit in that, in going that route. Other routes would be church, right? A lot of people lean on the church. They'll go to church, they lean on the pastor, they lean on that community, and they reap benefits from that. Also, no issues with that. Absolutely, go for it. Let me think. Therapist, psychologists, vacation is one that people tend to try to use, which is a traditional, like, go away, right? Go away. That's usually a traditional response to having had a terrible experience. And those are the top three, I think, that I have on my mind. Are there others that you can think about?
For traditional,
Mm-hmm.
that's about it. Like I think even speaking even further, I think whether non-traditional or traditional, I think a lot of people think that they have some answer outside of the scope of both of them, and they think that they have it all figured out, and they don't have a plan of action. They don't have a path to cross. So when
I love that you shared that.
yeah, when I think about what you described as traditional, I think this is the area where most people are afraid of because they have to kind of be vulnerable in front of someone that is probably a stranger, especially in the Black community, and the stigmas and all of that. We would love for this to be a viable option, and we work at it every day to try to get people to use coaches and therapists and these kind of things. But this is probably the one. I don't even know what you're going to say about non-traditional, but this one right here scares a lot of people because they don't want to feel like they're judged and all of this stuff. And what I always try to tell people, and you can piggyback on this, is that it's really not about judgment. It's really about you gaining some new tools.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have anything to add on to that, and then you can go into the non-traditional.
Yeah, I know for me, I have tried to go to therapy and completely unsuccessful experiences. Like, just couldn't mesh, couldn't gel. I don't know why. But it didn't work. And I've tried multiple times, like in the past, and it just never, ever, I think I couldn't go more than 1 or 2 sessions. And so for me, I had to figure out what are these other non-traditional ways of healing? What else is out there that I can utilize? Because I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I felt like I was broken. And when I would go into a therapist's office, they would make me feel more broken. And I didn't want to feel more broken.
Right.
Right. And so I felt like this was more like it just wasn't for me. Right. Because that wasn't the way my body, my soul, my spirit wanted to heal. My spirit, my soul, and my body wanted something else. And the goal here is for me to heal. It doesn't matter if it's here or if it's somewhere else. And so
Right.
I had to lean on other non-traditional modalities. And so I agree with what you said about not feeling comfortable being in a room. And I think that probably was the case for me, not feeling comfortable around someone and feeling judged and criticizing, like, you don't know, the whole, you don't
Right.
know my life kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
So what I leaned on was heavily on spirituality as a means for healing. And what I mean by spirituality, I mean like using Mother Earth as a vehicle, right? So grounding, like learning what it means to sit still and to be in my emotions and not push past my emotions. So you have nature as a non-traditional modality for healing. You have coaches as a non-traditional modality, becoming more traditional now, but
Yeah.
in essence non-traditional, right? We
Right.
go get certified out of ethics, but there isn't a board,
Right. Right.
overseeing us. And so non-traditional, I would put coaches in that category as well. Women's circles go back over 30,000 years. The patriarchy, although I love men, the patriarchal system stomp that down, right? Because women were doing a lot of things with nature and healing each other and supporting each other, and that couldn't go, right? Like that couldn't go on, and I can go on a tangent on that, but I won't. So, women's circles, coaches, nature as a healer. You have shamans, right? Shamans are great healers. You have people that do other types of spiritual work. Like let's open, in my opinion, let's open ourselves up to the fact that there is a world we cannot see with our own two eyes that exists. And I believe, God being the creator of all things, God is the creator of this other source of healing and energy and things that we could use that some people have access to. And we should use these people when these other traditional forms aren't getting it done for us.
Right. Yeah. This is kind of sort of how I felt about meditation. It'll make sense when I'm done. But when I thought about, when I was going through a lot of bouts of like stress and different things, and I was like, I need to find a way to calm myself. And I was like, everybody says do meditation, right? So when I started looking at like different ways that I can meditate, I was trying to mimic what I saw, and it really didn't connect with me. Like the waves crashing and this and the sing. I had a singing bowl. I tried everything, and I was like, it's not doing nothing for me. It's a little aggravating, a little bit. So I was like, yeah, it's quiet. I hear the birds chirping and all. I was like, I can't. But what I realized was, in the way that I operate in life, is I always look at solutions having multiple layers, perspectives, different lanes that you can go down. I just didn't find the one that worked for me, but that didn't mean give up. And that's the way that I feel about these modalities you're talking about. Just because you go down one path and it doesn't work doesn't mean you give up, because you still have work to do. And I eventually found that music, like certain types of music that I like, that was the thing. And then I was like, yes. But I was trying so hard to make the other stuff work that it didn't work. So I was like, but then I was like, I don't have to be like them. I have to go with what feels right for me. And I think that lends itself into what you were kind of talking about. Like some people, and I have a couple comments I'm going to read here too. Some people will go traditional. Maybe it doesn't work for them per se. And then they're like, well, I'm done. And they don't even look at the fact that there are other ways. And I think that that's the importance of having you on here as well, is because you can actually speak to some of these things that people normally don't think about. Right. I want to read a couple comments, and then we're going to go back into the points here. Love Tucker says therapists are often awesome, but you do need to speak to a few, like first dates, to find out who will be comfortable for you. Yep. Nisha says, "Oh, I like this lady." So, I told y'all. So, but as I'm going back through what you just said, it makes a lot of sense when you think about how we talk about energy and connectivity, even to people, but even connecting with ourselves, connecting with nature. The whole grounding thing, I didn't even really like learn about that until like a couple years ago. And I was like,
it is so powerful.
Wow. Like we be so in the hustle and bustle that we don't even think about being mindful about the stuff that's around us, and the grass and the trees and the breezes and all, and using that as a way for us to kind of get to a point where we can receive whatever information it is for us to learn. So if you have any other additional comments on that, then we'll move on to the next thing.
Okay. I'm like, as I do. Nature is in as a whole is a beautiful teacher, right? It's a beautiful teacher. And I think I'm just going to use this one example, right? I often hear, who am I? As a question, especially when you're on the healing journey, right? Because oftentimes you lose yourself, right? Especially women that have experienced the type of traumas that I specialize in, which is intimate partner abuse. You lose yourself. And there's a journey that you have to go on back to you. And the question often is, who am I sometimes? Once you get to a certain point, you start to ask that. And what came to me one day while being out in nature after having a circle and listening, like, holding space and listening to one of the ladies that was in the circle ask that question. And then me reflect that question back on myself and really hold on to it, because we don't think about it, but we ask it. Going out into nature and then walking around and seeing a butterfly and being mindful and present enough to notice the butterfly. And what I realized in looking at it was the butterfly never wonders who it is or what it is. Doesn't waste time trying to figure out who am I. It goes from being a caterpillar, gets cocooned, turns into a liquid, and comes out as something completely different, and never once questions the process and the rebirthing that happens. It just comes out and blossoms into whatever it is. And my answer to that question ended up being, after watching, is I can't be defined, nor do I want to be defined. I don't want to be put in a box. I am not just a survivor. I am not just a mom. I am not just a partner. I am, in my vision, I am love, because that's what God is. God created us in his image, and that is love. And so if I am love, then I can grow through, heal through, and push through anything and transform into anything and still be amazing. And
Yeah.
so if we can lean on nature as not only a place to ground, but also a teacher, like there's so much to be learned, so much
Yeah.
to be learned, and how we can use the wisdom that already exists and adopt it, because we've been disconnected.
Yeah. And I talk about the who am I thing a lot. Even using myself as an example, but a lot of us, as we grow and experience life, there are certain things that we gravitate towards, and then we naturally gravitate towards, and then we stifle ourselves because we let the outside world kind of push us in directions, in our family and different people in our lives try to push us in a direction that they think that we should go in, versus following what you have a passion and a passionate for, and the things that naturally come to you. And that, I think, is getting better now as the generations come, and as we grow. But I know that the baby boomers, they was trying to put us in a you must
Yeah.
do this or you won't be anything. And it's like, no, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. Nope, you're going to do this. And it stifles your growth. And so what you're saying is very important, because if you haven't done it, and at some point of your life, you have to really be able to just kind of like exhale and really figure out, like, am I really doing what I feel that I'm naturally supposed to do and be here for, or am I
Exactly.
really just letting other things dictate who I am and who I need to be in life? And that's
You can put
when
into a box.
yeah, and it stifles your growth, and it stifles what your purpose is here on Earth. Like, woo, it took me a long time to really just breathe and say, you know what, I could care less about y'all. I'm about to do me and be me, and yeah. So anyway,
Yes.
any other minor comments you have, and then we're gonna keep it
I'm
moving.
gonna say one, and I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna say one is that humans are the only species on Earth that has forgotten their purpose.
I believe that.
Like, that's it.
That's an amazing yeah, I really believe that. And that part sucks, because as I look at, and I know I'm on these little mini tangents, but I'm having these little things come in my mind. As you look at these little kids growing up, and they're so excited about life, and they have access to so much information, and to look at that and say, no, stop, do this instead. It almost breaks my heart to see that, man, because these kids now, I mean, they have some pros and cons, but they definitely, the stuff that they're exposed to, and the creativity that they have is through the roof. And I would, and as a parent, I could never, at this point, I could never, like, if she says she wants to go somewhere and do something, or dream this, or passionate about this, then I'm the biggest cheerleader. Like, we not we
Right.
not gonna stunt your growth over here. So So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about a couple of areas that we want to identify. And I do want to give a disclaimer. This is not every area. These are just a couple that we're going to highlight tonight, just so that you guys can kind of connect with where we're going with this. And for those that are just coming in, we're talking about healing and what does it really look like. So the first area, because I don't want to get off track, even though I probably did a little bit, but it's okay. It's my show. So, so let's talk about, and I talk about this a lot too, but I want to hear it from you. We're going to talk about how a lot of people show up in their adulthood based on their childhood experiences. So I don't know if you just want to start talking off the top or.
Yeah. It shows up in so many ways. Oh my goodness. And we don't think about them. And I'm sharing it more from the perspective of how can we as adults do better for our children? Because if we look at ourselves and if you're doing the healing work, you are going to see how your childhood impacted the way you show up, the way you make decisions, all that stuff as an adult. How the people who were around you as a child influenced the way you think and what you value and what you don't value. Like, you will see so much in doing that kind of work that it's important as adults to be the last flame, right? Generational trauma. How can you be the last flame? How can you do a level of work and provide a level of sacrifice that allows the next person, the next generation, to not burn, right? To not have to suffer. And it's uncomfortable. Like, the whole, do as I say because I said so
Right.
thing we grew up with, right?
I know it
And
will.
yeah, and we turn around and tell our kids, do as I say because I said so. But we know how that stifled us as adults, right? We go out into the world, and when our boss is telling us to do something that we're not necessarily in alignment, you're either going to do two things, right? You're either going to lash out or lose your job, or you're going to fall in line and do as you're told and not speak up and not get what you deserve because that's what you were taught to do, right? That's how you ended up on the good side by doing that. And so, yes, there's good things about that. I'm not saying that that it's the worst thing on earth, but we need to learn to give our children a voice now, so, and allow them to be comfortable speaking up in a room full of adults now, so that when they become adults, they're able to speak in those rooms and they don't feel like they need to be stifled. And so that's when I think about that. It's like we already went through it. We can't go back and change it. We just got to do the work now to heal ourselves, and forgive our parents, right? Because they only did what their parents did. That's usually how this goes.
Very true.
And so forgive them and support them as best as you can in them doing the work that they need to do to heal if they want to, because that's also not your responsibility.
Right.
Your responsibility is yourself and then the generation that comes after you. At least that's the way that I see it.
Right. Yeah. This. So when you talking about this in the show, we're talking about healing. I think when we talk about childhood trauma, things that happen in your childhood that affect you as an adult, I think a lot of people will feel like something may be coming from their childhood, but then when you talk about healing, then there's a point where they kind of pause and they don't necessarily know how to go about figuring out, like, and I know we talked about therapists and things like that, but just even having, and that's why people like you exist, because you have the tools to be able to kind of step them through some of these things. But I feel like a lot of people know that they need to do work, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to kind of tap into that stuff. And that's why I was, the things that you talked about earlier, even the non-traditional stuff, it's a way for you to center yourself so that you can be able to kind of look at those things so that you can find a point where you need to start healing. That part right there, I think for me, it was difficult for a long time because I knew something was off, but I didn't know that it came from when I was a little kid. And then I think the only thing that made me really take a look at it deeper was the fact that I looked at all the stuff that I wasn't doing right and I got tired of it. And I was like, there's a pattern. And I was like, as you step through the pattern, I eventually went all the way back. I think I stopped at like maybe like 1920. And then I was like, no, it goes back even further than that. And as I went through, I was like, the aha moment came and I was like, wow. So then as I had the aha moment, I fast forwarded back through everything and I was like, it all comes from that place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is the most, I would say, enlightening moment when you can actually do that. And then you now have the opportunity to move forward and make better decisions. Because I always tell people, once you can tell me what's wrong, you can't use it as an excuse anymore.
I love that.
How many more years you going to say, my mama did this, and this is why I'm treating people like that? You can't keep using the excuse now that you know what to call it. So if there's anything you want to add, we'll move to the next thing.
Yeah, I want to speak to what you were saying about not knowing where to start. And I want to speak to that. I'm going to give a short story, and then I'm going to give two short stories. So I'm going to start with a client that I had. We worked together one-on-one, and we were doing work around, financial trauma and really getting around that. And a part of my work is we have to go, my one-on work mostly, we have to go to the past. Right? If we're going to uproot, we have to go. And so I invite my clients to literally write their life story from as far back as they can remember, one memory per year. And as they go through that process, I then take the assignment and I look for energy. So as I'm looking at it, I'm finding the energy, I'm finding the patterns, I'm finding the emotions, I'm looking at the languaging that they're using, really breaking it down. And then we meet together in a session and we go through it, right? Now I have them read it to me. I already did my part, but now I want them to read it to me because now I want to see how they're reacting to what they're reading. Yeah. And what I had one client where we were able to basically identify she didn't have childhood trauma, or so she thought, right? Her childhood trauma was that she could never get in with the cool kids, right? Her perception of the cool kids, she could never get in with them, or whenever they did things, they always picked on her. If they invited her, they always basically treated her like the outcast, and she was always trying to get in, and they always pushed her out. So when she met this guy 20 years later, who was a part of this type of a group, right? The popular group. And he took her in and allowed her to become a part of that group. She couldn't see the red flags. She didn't want to see them. She finally got what she wanted, right? And so that was the foundation of her putting up with all the bullshit. Can I say it? Can I say it? I can't even think of another word. All of the bullshit. I couldn't even think of another word that she put up with up until that point, until she decided to go, right? And so in order for us to move on to the next thing, she needed to recognize that. We needed to acknowledge that. We needed to do the forgiveness work around that, all the things. But I just wanted to share that to say that she didn't grow up in a household where her parents were beating on each other, or, she grew up in a 2-parent household, very happy, good childhood, and as far as her memory is concerned, except for that piece, but that piece contributed to how she showed up in her life. The other story I'm going to say is about me. Maybe 8 months ago, I discovered a new trauma that I need to work on, right? And I always say you heal up to the level of your awareness. And as you become more aware, you find new things that need to get uprooted, work through, and so that you can continue on. The key here is to learn the skills and the tools to be able to do that, right? So that you're not spending years doing it, you learn how to do it quickly. But what I've realized is that the trauma that came up for me is around my diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis when I was 16 years old, and what that did, quote unquote, to my life, the life that I thought I was going to have. And I spent 6 months ignoring it because I just didn't want to do the work. I already know how much work this is, and I'm like, I don't want to do the work. And I just realized this week that this is a gift. because I've done so much healing. I mean, I've healed so much of my life. And now I get to heal this one thing, but I get to watch myself doing it. And I get to document this process now. And I get to like really hone it in and tell people. So when you said sometimes you don't know where to start, yeah, sometimes you don't know where to start. And the thing is, you still have to start. And sometimes starting just looks like accepting that there is something there.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I think the part that you said about language, that thing, people don't realize. I always tell people this. The words you choose matter. Because you have so many ways to say the same thing. But the ones that you choose to express how you feel or how you think tell a story about you. That's very powerful. That's why it's important to write stuff down. Because you really get to see yourself in your words.
Yep.
So we have the next point kind of piggybacks on that. And because you coach women, we're gonna target women on this one. And the bullet point says what women will put up with stems from their childhood experience. And if you want to couple these two, because I know they kind of go hand in hand, the next bullet point after that is about boundaries being a tool and not a weapon. So first we'll talk about what women will put up with stems from their childhood experience. So if you could speak to that.
So our stories are all unique. They're all the same in a way, but they're all very unique, right? The same is that we suffered. How we suffered, how we processed that suffering, how that suffering shaped the way we think, the way we act, the way we respond is unique to each person. And so what we put up with is a residual of what we saw or were exposed to as kids. I grew up in a household where my parents were very toxic towards each other. Lo and behold, 9 out of the 10 kids ended up in toxic, abusive relationships. And so even though we all said this will never happen to me, we put up with the little things that were red flags because they were normal, right? They felt normal. And so arguing and yelling at the top of your lungs and cursing at each other, that's normal because you're in a heated argument. No, it's not. That is not normal. And that is not healthy, right? Storming out the house and not coming back into the house until, who knows when. That's not healthy, right? That's not a healthy response to a disagreement. Yet you'll put up with that if you grew up seeing that. If you grew up seeing that and seeing your mom or your dad putting up with that, like both of my parents were abusive. It wasn't just one. They both were toxic. And I was toxic as hell because of it too. I used to feel like if a guy pissed me off, I had the right to smack him.
Woo.
Right. I had the right, because he did it. He did the thing that sent me over the edge because that's what I grew up seeing. And even though we're not talking about what the guy puts up with, it's in essence, I was willing to put up with the BS because I get to smack him afterwards and then we get to kiss and make up and everything is, back to normal. And that's not healthy. So it's very important to become aware of the way you show up in the world. Like really learn and start to become aware. Everything you do, even if it's wrong, it's not about wrong or right. Let me just get that out of here. When we're doing this healing work and we're doing the self-inquiry, there's no wrong or right. Do not judge yourself for the choices that you have made. You made them for a reason and they served you when they did, right? Now is an opportunity for you to make new choices. But in order for you to make new choices, you need to know what those wrong choices were, right? But those choices were that you've made that weren't in alignment with where you want to go, right? Because that's that saying, what got you here isn't going to get you there, right? Like what got you to today isn't going to get you to tomorrow. So think about how you're showing up. And again, think about how your past experiences, your mother, your aunts, your cousins, your grandmother, how they show up in the world and the way their life looks and what you have adopted. And it's really all about self-inquiry. in order to uproot that and change it. I know I keep going on a tangent because I'm so passionate.
It's cool.
about
We're
this.
tangent friendly here.
Okay,
me.
what was the second question? I don't remember it.
Oh, the
I went-
second one. Well, we were gonna segue into boundaries being used as a tool and not a weapon.
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes. You see, I'm like, ooh.
One of my favorite topics.
Boundaries. Listen, I love boundaries. However, I have found that some people set boundaries in ways to stunt their own growth. Like, just because someone triggers you doesn't always mean they're bad. I believe that God brings people into our lives to trigger us, to let us know this wound is still here. I need you to open it up and start cleaning it out. You're ready for this one. Right. You're not going to get triggered about something you don't have the capacity to start to do the work on. It's just a matter of you getting into that mindset to do that. So when I'm thinking about setting boundaries, a lot of times people set up these rigid walls that don't allow for flexibility, don't allow for ebb and flow, don't really allow for you to change either. Because you set this boundary that things must be this way. And when you change your mind, you don't even allow yourself to change your mind because you put up this boundary and now you have to, you feel like you have to live up to this boundary, right? You have to keep up this, whatever, this image. When you're setting boundaries, from a place, I like to say setting boundaries from a place of self-love. And it's how can I set boundaries that honor me as a human being, but don't stunt my growth. So a healthy boundary would look like, let me think. Like if I tell my partner, you can't go nowhere. My boundary is you can't go nowhere because, I don't trust other women.
Yeah.
No. Right? Like, no. But I can tell my partner, I don't want to keep you here, but I would appreciate it if you just let me know, like when you're going out, when you're going to be home. Or just communicate with me who you're going to be with.
Yeah.
Right? And that's your boundary. Your boundary allows for ebb and flow and not this, things must be this way, because if you're not this way, you're threatening me. What I'm communicating to my partner with this boundary is communication is important to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you just give me that? Which is a part of a healthy relationship. And if my partner doesn't give it to me, then we're not in a healthy relationship, right? And so good boundaries allow you to do those types of things versus the rigid, hard, that don't really leave room for growth for anyone.
Yeah, I when you talk about boundaries being used as a weapon and it's stunning your growth and all of that, where that takes me to is like when you hear people say, I'm a jealous person and you just gonna have to deal with it. And if somebody can't deal with my jealousy, then that's my boundary. Like that's where I discard them because they can't deal with my issues. But you don't, to your point, if you don't address that issue, then you don't grow.
Right.
Right. So we hear this a lot. Like people are like, I'm mean. So you just gonna have to deal with me being mean because that's just who I am. And I'm like, I don't have to. I really don't.
And you shouldn't have to.
If that's the metric by where you discard me, then I'm gonna have to bounce. Like I can't.
Right. Right.
But a lot of people do it.
They do. It's used as a control mechanism. If your boundaries are being used to control what other people say or do, like that's not a boundary.
Right.
That's like you're being a tyrant. You're
Right,
calling in
right.
that tyrant energy there.
Yeah, and I always tell people when you start leading with stuff like that, that's not you talking. That's your trauma speaking. Like you can't. I'm not going to start off like this, but then what ends up happening is if I got my own stuff, then I think that looks appetizing. I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and bond these traumas together and see what happens. And I'm like, no.
Right. Now it's a pot full of traumas. I used to be uber jealous, like break your windows, Jealous.
Wow.
Pop your
See, we gotta
tires and
watch
spray
out for
paint your
you.
car.
We gotta
Jealous.
watch out for you. We learned too much tonight, Altagracia.
Listen, I used to be, but like you said, it was trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That was my response. Like, you're not gonna hurt me. I'm not gonna allow you to hurt me. Like, you don't have that right. Versus, I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna become whole. I'm gonna learn to love myself. I'm gonna learn that I'm enough, that I'm worthy, and I'm deserving. And it's up to that person to decide what they want to do or don't want to do. And it has nothing to do with me. If he steps out, it's not, it has nothing to do with me. That's his choice. It means
Yeah.
nothing about me. And then now I get to make a decision from that
Yeah.
point versus
Yeah.
you can't do that because I think you're going to do the, I love that you said that. That jealousy is a trauma. And it is absolutely a trauma response. My boyfriend, my partner, I don't like to call him a boyfriend because he's a man. My partner is free. Like, he's free. He has tons of female friends at work. He go to happy hour with them. Sometimes I pop up and we all go to happy hour together. But to be where I'm at right now, where I'm comfortable with that, it feels so good. It feels so good.
I'm happy for you, damn it, because I'm looking at you. I'm like, she looks so innocent.
A lot of work went into this.
You
A
out here
lot
busting
of
out
work.
windows
Listen.
but I'm glad you're on the other side of that though.
That's why I get to tell the story, right? Because I
Yeah.
can say, like, I really was on the other side of this fence. I'm telling you, it is absolutely possible to get on this side of the fence, and it feels good.
Yeah.
It is better than you will ever feel on the other side.
And that's what makes you an amazing coach. It's the same place where I pull from. Like, I love connecting with people, especially people that have gone through stuff that I've gone through. And that list is long as hell. So I'm like, yep, did that, yep, me, yep, did that. So let's do this. Let's talk about as we begin to go on the downslope now. We're about to wrap this up soon, but I want to touch on this. I'm just trying to see what order I want to do it in. So we're talking about healing. We talked about, the different modalities of healing. And we talked about, and I think I brought it up about, like, where do you start? What's the difference between someone, or what does it look like when someone fully owns their experience versus just saying, like, identifying it versus fully, like, absorbing the fact that, this is really what happened? Like, what does that look like in a person? Because I know, and I'm trying to frame it in a way where it makes sense to the audience that will be listening. And we touched on it earlier about identifying it, but identifying it doesn't mean you fully absorbed it. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what's the difference between someone just saying, yeah, like, I'm gonna tell you a perfect example. Somebody told me maybe like some months ago, that I was trying to coach, and they started off because they assumed what I was going to say, and they was like, well, I already know I have daddy issues, so we can just kind of, move on past that. And I was like, wait. So if you could speak to that, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is the skirting of the stuff and not wanting to do the work. That's like how we started with the whole skipping over it. Like, yeah, I already know, so I'm done with that. And it's like, no, honey, you're not. Did you go in there? What does that mean that you have daddy issues? What does that look like? How does that show up for you? How do you feel saying that you have daddy issues? Right?
Yeah.
And really going into it. And I think it's, as coaches, it's important for us to catch people doing that. And like, oh, wait, you said that a little faster than you normally,
Way
can
too
we
fast.
slow down? Can we
Way
slow
too
down?
fast.
Can we stay here a little while longer? And I think that also speaks to you needing to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's important. You need to, it's a commitment. Healing is a commitment that you have to make. The journey is not easy, but it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. It gets to be fun. Like you get to
Yeah.
laugh at yourself. You get to do all
Yeah.
of that. But anywho, one of the indicators that I would say is that you're doing the work or fully owning your story is when shame starts to melt away.
Mm.
Right. When you can talk about it and not feel shame, when you can talk about it and your body doesn't respond.
Yeah.
That's how
huge.
that's how I tell when a trauma is still very much alive for me, which is
Mm-hmm.
how I know which trauma it is and which one I need to work on, right? That
Mm-hmm.
RA makes my gut feel like crazy. So my trauma is stuck in my gut. Right. Like,
Yeah.
I know that. So when I'm doing work, I need to work with those chakras that are in this area. I need to do exercises that are in this area. I need to eat foods that stimulate the energy in this area. It's a holistic approach when you're really ready to do the work
Mm-hmm.
to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like that, like you're taking it seriously. And once you get to the point where you've owned the story, not necessarily healed it, but owned it,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell the story without crying about it. I can tell you that at 16, I got rheumatoid arthritis and I had to drop out of high school and I couldn't walk for 2 years. And I could tell you I was in abusive, ridiculously abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide was on my mind. Like I could tell you all these things without crying. I accept it. I cannot tell you about the little moments without crying.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've done part one of accepting the trauma, but now I need to go in and do the work. Right. So I don't have shame in my story.
Yeah.
But in order for you to heal, you need to, next step is to objectively look at your story.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you were to step out of it and you were watching someone else go through this experience, what are you noticing? What are the big things that you're noticing along the way? What are the memories that still exist vividly? Because those are the ones, right? Those are the ones that are coming up because the body's ready for them. And you
Right.
start to do the work around them. But shame will hold you and make you suffer forever.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. A lot of people have a lot of shame, and the shame is tied to not owning their part.
Yep. 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 I think as I think about what you were saying earlier about non-traditional, I think the even larger benefit to the non-traditional ways that you were talking about, that you cited, when we're talking about the subject of healing, and let's say you're trying to heal from something or some event, the stuff that you mentioned, it's almost kind of all encompassing of like how you need to kind of absorb things for your life in general, not just the heal. Like the healing is like maybe why you arrived there, but like even
Mm-hmm.
like the grounding. Like if that's a method that you're using to help you heal, it also helps you in a lot of other aspects of your life at the same time. Where if you went to, let's say, a therapist, they will focus on certain things, but it's not really like a
Mm-hmm.
life thing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to focus on that because I think a lot of people don't think about this. Like, if you're doing something to start your healing, but it's also helping you center yourself, it's also helping you learn ways to calm yourself. Now you're starting to look at other aspects of your life where you may need these same tools,
Yes.
but the added benefit is that you're also allowing yourself to try to heal, from whatever the reason why you arrived there. So I think that the benefits are like ridiculous. Now that I'm thinking about it, because the reason why I keep thinking about it is because I know that I literally like have this like stupid relationship with stress and really just figuring out like how
Mm-hmm.
to and I'm thinking about the stuff you was talking about and I'm like I might be trying to heal from a breakup, but this also
Mm-hmm.
might help me in this area where I might be stressed out or how to deal with a situation that may not have anything to do with why I arrived there. So
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to bring that point up because some of us need a lot more than just focusing on that one thing. And if you can kind of come to a place where, even if it's just you calming yourself, even if you just started there, it's huge.
Yeah, I was going to say another thing that we could throw out there is breath work. We
Yes.
totally underestimate how powerful breathing is. You will activate your fight or flight nervous system, right, within, I think, about 12 seconds, 12 to 15
Mm-hmm.
seconds. Right? And then it takes forever to shut it down.
Yep.
It takes like, I don't know how many minutes, but more than a 30, usually like 15, 30 plus minutes to shut it down. If you were to start to breathe within those first 10 seconds of experiencing something that is getting ready to send you into that, you can stop yourself
Yep.
from going into the fight or flight mode, right? You can literally activate your nervous system and activate the calming side of it versus the, oh my God, disaster's about to happen, I need to freak out, right?
Right.
And go that route. So breath work is another one that is really powerful, and it goes all the way around. Breath work can help you move energy through your body,
Yeah.
right? And so finding the trauma, so on. I had severe anxiety. Severe anxiety. I woke up every morning and threw up. I threw up a couple times a day, and it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I tried. I would wake up with anxiety, and it was puking every morning, right? They was like, oh, you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. I said, the
Wow.
F not. No. Mm-mm. No, that's not going to happen to me. And I learned to pay attention to my body. And so I learned breathing techniques. I did so much intuitive work. And anyone can do this type of work by listening to their body. Trauma has a way of making us disconnect from our body because our body isn't safe, right? When we experience
Right.
trauma, we feel like our body isn't safe. We separate from our body. We tend to not feel things. Like that's the avenue that we go down. And so one of the activities of healing trauma is to actually come back into your body and start to connect with it and listen to what it feels, right? Listen to the pain in the back of your head, or, your heart palpitating, or like for me, my gut feeling like, like a cop just pulled up behind me when I think about that trauma.
Yeah.
That's telling me something. But if I'm too busy out here and disconnected from my body and the skirting past things, like, yeah, I know that, but I don't even want to recognize how that feels.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah.
you can't heal. But it's possible. Like, it's totally possible.
Yeah. TK's Chronicle of a Black Sheep podcast says, my anxiety is bad. She says, I started working on breathing, still a process. So,
One of the positions I used to put myself in that always worked was the fetal position. So I would like sit on the ground, bring my knees up, put my arms behind my head and put my head between my knees and like take really massive deep breaths. That really helped a lot. It would almost always curb the anxiety. And usually I had to use that once I kind of cross a threshold. When I was already on the other side. Now I'm very aware if my anxiety is getting ready to come in, and I'll say it. That's when I speak to it. Like, oh my God, I feel anxious. And then I start to talk to my body. Well, why are we anxious? What's going on? Like, what can I do? What would help me right now? Should I go drink water? Maybe take a shower, wash my hair, cleanse my aura, pray, meditate, walk. What do you need?
yeah.
And really talking to the body to let the body guide you. Like we are magnificent beings, and we don't understand not even a tenth of the capacity that we have as humans, right? In this body that we have. And modern Western medicine tells us we have no control, right? Like we have no control. This is a computer. We're more like an AI. We're more like an AI than a computer, okay? Which learns to heal, to fix itself, to repair itself, to do things. Like you cut yourself, you don't even have to think about what to do. It just does it for you. And so imagine if you really started to connect to your body and communicate with it in a way to get it to listen, to really become one with your body. And I think that's one of the things that I really emphasize in the circle that I do with the ladies. We always do movements. There's dance, there's movements all the time. There's meditations, there's breathing, there's visualizations, there's journaling, there's talking, sharing, crying, laughing. There's all of that, because all of that has to be a part of healing.
Right. Love Tucker says my anxiety when it's bad shows up as hives. Like I have chicken pox, horrible. Yay, Xanax. So hold on, one more, and then we're going to segue into the last part of this that I want to get into. TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep says Sunday nights my anxiety keeps me up, going to work on Mondays and not knowing the BS I may have to deal with.
That's
Amen.
big. Yeah.
That right there, it's crazy. But
That's like a
I
whole
will
nother
say,
episode I would love to go into.
I mean, if you want to, we can. I don't know what time your bedtime is, but you know,
We could do that. I feel like that there's so many layers to that. So many layers to that, and we can really talk about it in a bunch of different ways. Like, is there a mindset shift that we could do? What can we control within this situation? What is within our control, and what isn't? With what is outside of our control? And we tend to focus on things that are outside of our control, and that gives us anxiety. Well,
yeah,
it can make anxiety worse. I'm not going to say gives us. Can
right,
make anxiety worse. And so, what are ways and tools and techniques that we can use to support us in navigating the world of anxiety? Because it's very real.
yeah,
It's a
it's
very
huge.
real thing.
It's huge, and the whole thing about listening to your body, I think like probably maybe a little bit before COVID got real, I was really dealing with a lot of stress. Like I really like. I think the part that scares a lot of us is when it starts to affect you physically, and then you're like, okay, now I really gotta figure this out. But the whole listening to your body thing, that has helped me. Like I now know when I need to breathe. I know now when I need to detach from something and really kind of center myself, and that's helped me
Hmm.
out a lot. Like just paying
Hmm.
attention instead of just keeping pushing. I can't do that anymore. Like it
Yeah,
scares me to go back to feeling like that again. So I'm like,
you
let me
learn.
detach, let me take a break, let me do what I need to do to make sure that I'm good.
It takes us back to like the statement that I made earlier of us, like we're the only creatures that don't live in their purpose. We're not even like we're living in the hamster wheel, kind of doing what society tells us must be done when it must be done, and so on and so forth. That we don't pause to think about what is going to help me feel good.
Hmm.
And that is somewhat seen as a terrible thing to do. And I am so against that perception, because if you're not okay, if you're not whole, if you're not taking care of you, you cannot show up as your best self anywhere, like anywhere.
Very true. Very true. Love Tucker.
And
Love Tucker
but
says, and I got into the alternatives that help me not have the hives or take pills. So yeah,
there's so much.
yep,
There's so much out there. Natural ways. I love that he said
yeah,
that, because there's so many natural ways um, to support ourselves. I always go back and think about our, ancestors and ancient societies, and what kind of illnesses did they have, and how did they manage them. And you see a lot of them knowing how to use plants,
yeah.
and how to rituals, and like the dancing around the fire every night and telling stories.
Hmm.
That wasn't just dancing around the fire every night and telling stories. That was moving energy within their bodies. That was
Hmm.
grounding themselves from all the work they did that day. That was celebrating the life that was just all these different acts that bring us into the human experience. And society doesn't want us to, I could go on a tangent on that shit, but society doesn't really want us to be present to that. But yeah, it's really important stuff.
Yeah. Erica says her anxiety shows up as headaches. That's
Mm,
huge too and dangerous
mm,
because
mhm,
I deal with that too with stress. My stress shows up as headaches too. Um,
mm.
and so let's do this. We're going to talk about the power of community while healing, and then you can use that as an opportunity to segue because I really want you to talk about the sister circle and what that is and the why and the how and all of that so people can really absorb not only what it is and what you bring to the table as far as that, but like really how powerful it is. So the power of
Mm,
community while healing, and then you can segue into what you do or do it both at the same time. I don't know how
got
you want to do it.
it. So the power of community. So often I think when we're doing healing work, we tend to want to go hide in our room by ourselves.
Hmm.
And that's okay to an extent, right? That's okay to an extent. But what I have found is when you can surround yourself with a community of women that are willing to hold space for you, not try to fix you, not try to tell you what to do or what not to do, but just hold space for you and allow you to be in your mess, allow you to to be in your authenticity in the moment. There's a certain power in that. And that goes back to what I think I shared at the beginning, that like circles go back over 30,000 years. Women used to gather when they had once they got their periods, right? And they would have like these moon houses, these red tents, I think they called them. And the women would gather, and you would have the older women, the crones that are already in their menopause with the moms, and then the daughters that just got their cycle, and they would be in these houses, and they would support each other through the process, right, of the cycle. We don't even honor our cycle as women anymore, and that might be a little too much, but we don't. And the thing is, it's a part of our process, right? It's a part of who we are. And it was a way for women to have community, to support one another, to talk, to cry about the burdens that they felt that they were carrying, so that they can go back out into the world and continue on their mission, right? Continue on doing the things that mattered to them. And so I firmly believe that you can expedite your healing process when you have community. Because I refer to all the women in my circles as sisters, right? You and a fellow sister is, you might be going through the same thing, or she may have already gone through it, and you're just going through it. And she doesn't tell you, oh, you should do X, Y, and Z, right? She says, I went through this, and this is what helped me. And I love that. I think we always tend to go between, I don't know if you know of the drama triangle. So you have the rescuer, the prosecutor, and the victim. It kind of goes between these three. You're either being a victim, you're either persecuting, right? Or you're rescuing someone. And we tend to ping pong between these three. And that's not healthy, right? And the reason we do that is because we don't want to really sit in any single one of them. So we're constantly moving through all of them. But if we were to just separate ourselves from needing to save anyone, from needing to feel like a victim and have people feel bad for us, or from needing to blame anyone and say it was someone's fault or not, you get to then sit in the essence of what that experience is. And so community and circles gets to be that space where you do it safely.
Right.
Right. You do it safely. Yeah.
I think we got a whole circle here in the comments about anxiety. They're like, we need to do a show about everybody. Everybody's like, yep, me too. So yeah, that anxiety is real. It's really
that would
real.
be something, that we would go into the circle and try to understand. Like if we were in a women's circle, I'd be taking us in there. Like, let's go on a journey, and let's go in and let's see if our higher self, our intuition, our spirit guides, however you want to refer to, the things that exist between the realms. But going into meditation brings us into theta wave, right? So it allows us to bring our brain waves down and really slow it down, which opens us up to a different frequency and different sources of information. And so through that visualization, we can go in and say, okay, like, what is this tied to?
Right.
And allow our higher self to guide us to that memory. And that's something that I talk about a lot in the circles, not second guessing what's coming up for you. Never second guess what your intuition is telling you because you think it's not right, right? And what I have found is that has been really transformational for the women because they're accepting things that they would otherwise not accept. Yeah. And that's like we shared, that's part of the process is accepting it. So going in and trying to figure out when was this anxiety born? What birthed it? And how is it keeping you safe? Because we tend to think of things as harmful, but how is it keeping you safe? What is its purpose?
Very true. So this is what I want you to do now. I want you to tell everybody anything that you have offerings coming up, and what they entail, and how people can find healing through these things. Let people know what you got coming up, and then let them know how to find you.
Got it. All right. So I have, as we've been talking about throughout the program, monthly healing circles that I facilitate with women of all shades and backgrounds, which I think makes the space all that much more amazing. It's a membership program. So you would sign up for 3 months. And I always get the question, why 3 months? Because you can't just come once and get reap the benefit. Like, it's a commitment. And so I don't tie you to a year. Right. So you get to come for 3 months, experience it. If it's for you, you get to sign back up and stay for another 3 months. And that's the way that I do it. So you're always free to step out, but I hold you accountable when you step in. And so that's always available to you. And you can always find the link in my bio on Instagram. It's always there. It's called Sacred Healing Circles. And we meet once a month. But what I want to take an opportunity to talk about, which I think is really tied to, some of the things we talked about here today, is a new program that I just launched today called Sacred Heart. And what Sacred Heart is, it's a healing circle for mothers and their preteen daughters. So daughters between the ages of 10 and 13. And I picked that demographic because although I was working with my clients one-on-one, I found that I was really supporting them in the middle of this transition phase that our daughters are going through. And I decided to create a space where mothers and their daughters get to come in and create a solid foundation to build a relationship upon as their daughter transition from their little girl into a young woman. And I feel like that's a big block. I know it's a big block, it was for my mom. My mom's transition was, don't play with boys. And that was the end. And so we really pulled apart and we drifted and we bumped heads. And so my mission with this program is your daughter is becoming a young woman, which means she's going to have her own opinions, her own values, her own perspective. And we need to learn to open ourselves up to hear that. And so Sacred Heart is a 3-month container, and we would meet 6 times. And I'll go into it if you want to on a phone call. I don't want to keep us here any longer, but it's going to be an amazing transformational program because it's going to, through the program, your daughter's going to gain confidence and so are you. You're going to be supported by a community of other mothers, and they're going to be supported by a community of other daughters. We're going to do curiosity assignments. There's art included in it, but at the end goal is that you and your daughter walk away with what I'm calling a promise of a shared vision of what your relationship gets to look like with them as they transition into this next phase of their life, and make it so that it's not hard, make it so that you're not bumping heads, and alleviate that feeling of wanting to kind of cower away because you're trying to give your daughter space to be independent, and at the same time you need to be a parent. Right?
Yeah.
And so finding that balance. But I'm really excited about it. And it's by application only, though. So because this container is super sacred, you can't just sign up. I'm doing a call. So we would have to get on the phone, have a conversation. Because like I said, I want to make sure that the women and the daughters that step into this container are, 1, prepared for it. And 2, are going to just give as a part of this experience because it's circle. And it's not just about me. It's about what we all bring into the space.
Right. I like that. I like that a lot. It's very necessary. And it also speaks to what I attempt to do here sometimes, well, most of the time, and what we do on the Real Shop Talk is really kind of lead the charge by example. Like once you have information that you can share, then it's our duty to kind of be a part of a community and to help grow that community. I do want you to back up a little bit, and I want you to expound a little bit more on the original Sister Circle.
Yes.
So this is where I want you to go with this, because I know my audience, and this is what they're thinking. The Sister Circle. Does it have, like, if I have a specific thing that I want to address, let's say, what does a Sister Circle focus on? Certain things, or am I coming in just as myself and I'm just garnering information based on whatever I'm dealing with? Like, some people are going to say, I want to join the Sister Circle, but will they be addressing what I'm dealing with?
Oh, I love that you asked that, because one of the biggest things is surrender. Sometimes we think we know what we need, and oftentimes we're wrong, right? When we're here, when we're in here. But when we're here, that's different, right? But when we're in here, we tend to think like, I have daddy issues and that's done.
Right.
And so the way that the circle topics are picked are intuitively. So the ladies in the circle that are a part of it now, they sometimes will say, I want to do this thing the next time we meet. And if everyone's in agreement, then that's what we'll do the next time we meet.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
the way that we've done it, and we've been doing it now going on almost a year, they don't ever pick a topic. It's usually like we do the work and maybe something comes up and I'm just like, I feel, right? So I'm really in my body. I feel like this is what we need next. Right. And I'll present that to them and allow them to say, more often than not, there's a yes. Other times we don't feel anything within that session. And I spend the next 2-3 weeks just waiting and listening for my guides to tell me what the circle is going to be about. And for this particular circle that we're having on Sunday, it's about the unknown, right? Which is a big part of healing. We don't know what's on the other side. We don't know what's going to happen when we start to bring things up. We don't know the possibilities that exist for us. So how can we learn to become comfortable with the unknown? Yeah. And how can we use the unknown as a space for transformation, for growth, for release, for all those things? And the reason that the topics are the way that they are is because I too don't want to put my women in a box.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Your story is your own. And so I get to take us on a journey to figure out what your story is and what your story is. But we always share, then we share. I always get women that say, I don't like talking in front of people. I can't tell you how many women I've had say that. I've never had an issue with a woman coming into circle and not speaking.
Isn't that funny how that works? Like when you put people in a group and one person starts talking, then it's almost like they feel like they're now given permission to share.
Yeah.
And then the floodgates open.
Yeah.
And so I wanted you to talk about that part because sometimes you don't know what you need until you're in the environment. And then you're like, I'm glad I came. This isn't even the topic that I came for, but damn it, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
So I wanted, that's literally.
And that's exactly the energy.
Yeah, it's like, because
That's
I experienced this when I'm in different forums, and like sometimes even when I'm looking at comments, and just like tonight, who knew all of these people dealt with anxiety, right?
Right.
And so it took one person to say I had it, and then everybody else was like, me too, me too, me too. And once you're able to be in a space where you can openly talk about it, people get real brave when they know that they're around other people. Yeah.
It's a freedom. It's like, I call it I always say step into your authentic self. Step into the circle and you get to step into you, right?
Yep.
Because no one in this space is judging you. Right?
Yep.
Everyone is showing you love. Everyone is here to support you wherever you are. I've had a circle where we created, it was an activity that we did called the Chatterbox. And that was about going into the mind and learning that we actually have control over our thoughts, right? We think we don't, but we actually do. And so how can we harness that power, that ability, and use it to our advantage? And one of the ladies, after we did the exercise, when it was her turn to share, shared that, and I'm only sharing because I know she is like, use me to market the circle. Like she does that all the time. So I'll share. I won't share her name. But what she said was, she came on and she was crying. And she's like, I couldn't see the damn box. She said, I couldn't see it, so I smashed it. And I feel so bad because all of you saw your boxes and your boxes were beautiful and you saw your thoughts and I didn't see it and I broke it down and I'm like, perfect. And that's what everybody else said to her too. Perfect. Because we're not here competing against one another. We're here to hold space, and you get to break your box because that's what you needed to do. You needed to break it, so you broke it, and good for you for doing that, right? Like, good for you for doing that. And then 2 weeks later, she writes me, and she's like, I created a new box.
Yeah.
I created a new box. Can I send you a? She actually drew it out and sent me the picture of it. And that's the power of circle. And, like, that's the magic of circle and community and having that. Like, I love this. I love her so much. Me and her have been working together for 2 years, and I love her so much. And she cares about her growth. Like, and she tries, and she allows herself to be not okay, to be in the mess, to be angry, and then to celebrate and be happy. And like, she allows herself to go through it. And I think that's powerful, right? Yeah. Some people in the circle only see colors. Like when we're doing the exercises, they never get the words. They never get the stuff, and they just come back and they're like, I saw purple, and then I saw green, and then look it up. Like, oh, this is what purple means. This is what green means. What were you thinking about? Oh, this is how this ties into what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
So it's really a sacred, safe space. And that is a staple program that will always be there. Like the Sacred Monthly Healing Circles will never go anywhere. It is amazing for the women. It is amazing for me. And like when we talked about the holistic stuff, on Circle Day, I don't work. I don't take client sessions. I eat really healthy. I meditate. I ground. I burn my sage. I do my oracle spread. I bring my crystals. I pray. I do all the stuff to create the container so that when they show up, they literally just, it's like everything that they had before they came is gone and they're here. They're present and they're in the container. And that's powerful.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it's powerful. And now I get to create, and that's where I'm creating like, okay, I do this for moms. How can I support moms that are doing this healing journey that want to be the last, right? That want to be the last stick that burns and not bring the trauma towards their children. To create a container where now they get to bring their daughters into it, and we actually do start to do the work. Right. To unpack that and support them in doing what they're doing while we're all supporting the girls in establishing good, healthy boundaries and learning how to speak up. And like one of the activities in the Sacred Heart is the end assignment is a piece of artwork that the mother and the daughters are going to create together. But the daughters are the ones who are going to present it to the room full of women. Why? Because they get to see themselves being heard and their voices being valued, right? And what they desire as important. And so it's just as much for the mothers as it is for and that's, like I said, transitioning what I already do here and creating this other thing here that I know it's needed.
Yeah. That's amazing. You got me smiling over here because that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, it's important for us to think about how we fit in this whole puzzle and what we bring to this thing and really use our, like we talked to just to bring this whole thing home, man. It's like when we talked about healing, we're talking about community and just being able to share experiences and growing in that way and really looking at who you are and living as your organic self. When you bring that to a table like this, the magic that happens, like I haven't done something specifically like that, but just me moving around and just engaging as many people as I do on a daily basis, there's power in sharing. In the way that you talked about how you're framing it out, I can tell that you thought a lot about every piece of this thing. And that's why I like you too, because your brain, like you be doing stuff like me. So when you frame it out like that, and it really makes sense to people, and they're in that environment, the structure, but you also give them the ability to kind of relax and it's not like you got a PowerPoint presentation and you're like no.
Right.
So I value that, and I want people who are listening and who will listen, make sure that if this sounds like something that you yourself need to really like gravitate towards, and then the whole thing with the mother and the daughter, that thing right there,
it's going to be a powerhouse. I actually just launched it today and I already sold 4 spots. 4 spots
like y'all
already
really
gone.
like people in the comments. I know some of y'all are kind of up here with me in age, and y'all kids is probably about 25.
But you might know someone, right?
That's what I'm saying. If you know somebody,
let them
if
know.
you know somebody, please forward them to Alta. See, I'm gonna call you Alta Gracia because that's how I first met. I'm not doing that. I'm not shortening the name. I'm gonna stick with the long name. Make sure y'all forward. I put her IG in the comments. So make sure you guys go back and please if you do nothing else, follow her. Cause she got stuff coming. Like I be watching her timeline and the things be beautiful. It be like, yes, this is coming. Yes, here's a tip. And I'm like, damn it, let me go back to the drawing board and work on my stuff. So make sure y'all follow her. See what she's got going on. Forward people to her if you know, because y'all got to experience her energy tonight. Y'all got to experience her knowledge tonight. This right here lets you know that you're going to be in a safe place. So make sure that you hook up with her. like I said, follow her. If nothing else, there's some inspiration on there. There's some tips on there. Like, you get everything. So
Thank you.
just go there. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. So on that note, I thank you for coming back. This not gonna be the last time. You know that. So thank you again. If there's anything you want to say before we get out of here, now's the time, and we're gonna get out of here.
I just want to thank you. I honestly want to thank you because your energy from the beginning has been so supportive, and so open and just like human. And in this world of business, right, of trying to grow what we're trying to grow to help other people, I honestly honor the way you show up in your masculine energy, because you have a very good balance of the masculine and the feminine. You are comfortable in both. And so I want to thank you for not only our interaction, but for doing what you're doing. I think it's going to be a game changer.
Anytime. So on that note, guys, make sure you go to relationshipgumbo.info, the website. Make sure you follow all my social media, YouTube, especially subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, because those pop-ups are legendary. When I pop up and go live, those things be they dig in your guts a little bit, but we all need that sometime to really unearth some things. So the podcast, as much as I love it, the Instagram lives they're a little bit more off the hinges. So you it's not
like, I want to go on there.
You're invited to come on one day if you're free. We could talk about that. We can talk about some stuff. So stay tuned. I'm not opposed to that. So yeah, guys, just make sure you connect with me, connect with Altagracia, and just keep following this community that we have, the Real Shop Talk, and all the people at TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep, Erica at Dope Discussions. Everybody got something going. Let's connect and build this thing. So y'all have an amazing rest of your night, amazing rest of your week and weekend. Take care of yourselves and your families, and whatever's going on floating in the air, just kind of be safe. I don't even know what to call it anymore, but
I ain't even gonna go there.
I'm gonna just leave that there.
I love it.
Just be safe, and we will. Well, because we gonna do this again. We gonna see you next time, and y'all have an amazing night. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derrick Jones about to break it down with the relationship gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah.